Okay, so the disclaimer is most of what I'm going to tell you is on here. So if I end up coughing up a lung and having to leave the room, then you can read about it. My job here, first I'm Christy, if y'all didn't catch that. And my job here is development director. So I make sure that we have the funding for all these amazing programs that you guys have been learning about. And it's pretty miraculous the way that that happens. And I think it says so much about our community because we do not receive any government funding at all. We made that decision by our board because we didn't ever want to be hindered in sharing the gospel with our clients. And so 90% come from individuals and churches here in our area, which I think is amazing. There are several things that we do in order or during the year that we want to let you guys know about. But first, I want you to know that I've been on staff. This is my 8th year, and I volunteered just like you guys are interested in volunteering. I did that for about 4 years. But before that, I came here as a client, and I came in the middle of an unplanned pregnancy. And, you know, it's one thing, and I've kind of seen this over and over with our clients. It's one thing when you know that your life is a train wreck, and mine was, and I knew it, but there's a whole different level when there's another innocent life involved in that. And I pretty much lost it. And I came here for answers that I needed yesterday because my regular doctor was somebody that that we partied with a lot, if that tells you any of the state of where I was. So I knew not knowing what I'm going to do, I know I'm not going to go there because that's not going to work out well for me at all. So I come here, and I don't know if any of you guys knew, Kelly Jennings was here for years, and she was my client advocate. And what I remember the most about her was she was just a rock. And in the middle of what felt like a catastrophic storm, like she was that one solid, stable, yes, you can do this. No, you're not going to think of what you're thinking. And she was kind. She showed a lot of grace. And I love watching our volunteers come in because God does this amazing thing by linking the right people up with just the right person. And she was, because I was tough and hard. And she just laid down the law. And I can remember her saying, "Do you have love?" Almost kind of sarcastically. I'm like, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "Well, then that's all you have to have." And I can remember thinking at the time, okay, that seems pretty simplistic because I know people with teenagers and it looks like a lot more than that. But at the end of the day, she was right. Like over and over, that's what it's been. And, you know, she just said, you didn't choose to be here right now, but every bit is a part of God's plan. And he'll make good of it if you allow him to do it. And you stop trying to pick it apart and make it what you think it needs to be. And so often this is kind of a key theme that we see here too, is that young women come in and they have this perfect picture of the way that things are supposed to be. And when their real situation doesn't match up to the perfect picture, well, oh my gosh, like now I have to have a do-over because this isn't the way that things are supposed to be. And so I was really thankful for Kelly. And really in the days that followed of all the negative competing voices in my head, the one saying you are for sure going to end up on the Jerry Springer show and you cannot be a parent and you will never ever be enough, like it was hers that would come up to the top. And you know, it would be simple things like I shared with you, like all you have to have is love. He will take care of the rest. And she was so sure about it that I can remember thinking that became the biggest unanswered question. What if what she said is true and I do what I think I need to do? And, you know, I think if you would have asked me, I always would have said, yes, I'm pro-life, you know, or I would say I was pro-education, whatever that was supposed to mean, but a cop-out is what it was. And I think it's a whole different story when you're the one standing on the edge and looking over and having to decide because your situation is always going to look completely different. And I have an amazing 13-year-old little girl, and I cannot imagine life without her, of course, you know. And she's anointed. She's so anointed. And God just speaks to her in these amazing ways. And, I can remember her saying, she was probably 7 or 8. And I can so vividly remember her saying, I remember when God sent me down to you. And I think it's a funny kid thing to say. So I'm like, okay, well, tell me about that. And she goes, well, I was in this little egg thing and I just floated down. And I'm like, wow, like she doesn't know anything about anything. And so I thought, well, that's kind of curious that she said it that way. And I said, well, okay, well, how did you know how to find me? And she goes, oh, I just had to look for your heart. Oh, and that just touched me because I thought, I believe that. Like, I believe that she had this little mission and that I stood in the place where I could have squelched that. And that's what we see every day here is people in the same situation that I was in who would have said 10 minutes ago that they were pro-life, but now their situation is different. And what ends up happening are all these lies that you believe in your head. Like, I never had one day of morning sickness ever. But at the time, I had 3 nieces that I thought the absolute world of. And I can remember trying to picture taking any one of them out of their 2-parent, what I considered perfect home, and raising her on my own. And every time it would just nearly bring me to my knees. And I would think, well, if I can't even imagine that for her, how could I do this to what I feel like has the potential, to be my own kid? And I really did feel like before coming in here that it isn't what I wanted. I did not want to have an abortion, but I did believe that that probably was the biggest act of grace. And it would have been selfless because that isn't what I wanted. Excuse me. Pause.